KISSA in-store radio, broadcast for the curious.
All right. What's up, everyone? This is season 1 of the KISSA in-store radio, brought to you by Antariksh Records. We're coming to you live and direct from the Veg Non-Veg store here in Gurgaon. We're streaming every weekends from 6 to 9 p.m. And for this little while, you are now logged into Oaaza's slot. This is the part where I'm supposed to sound very composed and professional, so we'll see how long that lasts. My name is Nakul. I am a DJ, I am a selector, a music producer, and most importantly, your host for tonight's show. Now, depending upon how you've landed here, this might seem a little different. For the ones tuning in online right about now, perfect timing. You have picked a great show to watch, and I promise, give it a little time, it's going to make more and more sense as we go along. Do not forget to check out everything else that's been going on the KISSA in-store radio. We had the launch and the Record Store Day celebration on the 18th of April. We had the International Jazz Day special broadcast last weekend, and ever since then we've been having a lot of different artists come and curate really interesting and exciting shows for you all. All right. We just had Guldasta, the second edition of Guldasta, curated by Web of Vatra, right before this. And also a special mention to Anandit, aka Antariksh Daddy. Thank you so much, Anandit, for giving us the opportunity to do something like this and to be a part of the Antariksh experience. And also a big kudos to Veg Non-Veg for being so cool about letting us do stuff like this here at their space. All right, there's something really pleasant about a setting like this. We've got people trying around sneakers and apparel at the back. We've got conversations happening around in the background. And we have this little pocket of sound, this little intimate setting in the store from where we're trying to build something together and create its own identity. And that's what today's show is also all about. The name of the show is called Pressed Identities. The inspiration behind it actually came from the emotion that is usually invoked within people when they get to experience a vinyl. When they listen to the music, when they look at it, when they hold it, and if they do reach a point when they do start collecting it as well. And to be honest, it's not just about the music that everyone listens to. It also is about the artwork of the album. It's also about the design language that is used. It's also about the way that it's packaged, the way that it's pressed into something physical, and eventually gives us a feeling that is so magical. And that meaning behind the listening, behind the visuals, behind the connection that the individual forms with the vinyl, that meaning is what we are trying to explore here. So with Pressed Identities, each episode is going to have the personal collection of the host being showcased. The host will be getting selected vinyl records to unpack in front of you all. And yeah, so let's get on with it. Today's show in particular is going to be about rediscovery. It's going to be about the vinyl albums that perhaps might not have received the recognition or the admiration at the time that it was released, but now are finally getting the respect and the love that the vinyl deserves when it's being rediscovered by individuals in the 21st century. And this act of rediscovery is actually what got me thinking about what listening is actually all about. And I don't mean when I say it in the form of streaming or in the form of usual consumption or in a way where we play the music at the back and we are perhaps doing 5 different things all at once. I mean actual listening. And the best way that I can explain what I particularly feel listening is the act of receiving aliveness. And I don't mean this in a very philosophical sense, not today at least. What I mean to say is that there are moments when the sound is existing within the space with us. And it's not just being played, but it is with us. And that's what I personally believe listening's all about. This belief was actually quite common back in the 1970s, especially in the US. There was a huge wave at the time where people actually started believing that, plants, they actually do listen to the music. Um, they respond to touch, to emotion, to uh, to the to also the music that they listen to. Now, how much of it is true or not, even I'm not so sure about it. And we will not digress, we won't get into that. But the fact that it actually made people believe is what we're trying to get to. And around all of this, around when they started believing in something like this, something different, right in the middle of that moment is this album that we'll now be talking about, Shows Up. This is Mother Earth's Plantasia by Mort Garson.
KISSA in-store radio. Broadcast for the curious.
KISSA in-store radio, broadcasts for the curious.
So that was the first two tracks of the album. The first one as the title, Plantasia, and the second one was Symphony for a Spider Plant. Um, I'd show you guys the cover again. That's Mother Earth's Plantasia, and as the subtitle says, warm earth music for plants and the people who love them. Now, this subtitle also tells a lot about the vinyl in itself, because this wasn't actually entirely made to consume as a normal album. You wouldn't be able to go and find this in any store or a record shop for that matter. The only way that this was accessible at the time was it was given away with plants at just one store called the Mother Earth Boutique in Los Angeles. So it perhaps entered everyone's life the same way that a plant does. You take it home, you place it somewhere, and it just becomes a part of your space. Yeah, and perhaps subconsciously, that's how the change happens when you listen to it. Now the sound of the record in itself is quite interesting. Mort Garson, the artist, majority of the work that he had before this album, he used to make a lot of pop music, but then he got his hands on the Moog synthesizer, and post that, it was kind of a eureka moment for him. He shifted and pivoted his the kind of music that he was making from pop to a little more niche, a little more experimental. And with the Moog synthesizer, he started making sounds that seem a lot more futuristic and a lot more modern. That is usually what all the other artists that were using the Moog synthesizer at the time, they were structuring these kind of sounds which sounded very modern and futuristic. And perhaps Plantasia also has that sound as well. But Garson tried to make it feel very warm, very soft, in a way that it feels like it's growing with you. And that was the beauty of how he used the synthesizer. Now, at the time, the synthesizer was quite new. It just came about in the market, and it wasn't like the ones we have currently. They had a lot of cables, knobs, oscillators that we had to connect. We had to structure it from scratch and shape it piece by piece. Yeah, and at the same time, when the album was made, it didn't really take off too much, considering it was not positioned as a normal album should. It was more like a novelty rather than an album that you could just purchase and listen to. But then something really interesting happened. About a decade after it was made, people got introduced to the same sound, aspects of the same sound again when you would see kids perhaps playing The Legend of Zelda in their Nintendo games, in the Nintendo, sorry, and that sound is quite similar to one of the tracks that we will be listening to after this. And that's how the sound kind of got introduced to the people again. And at the time, Garson was not officially credited for it, but the music found its way to the masses again, pretty organically, pretty naturally, which is kind of wild because now the same kind of music that was actually made for plants is getting consumed by kids playing video games. It's insane. And that's perhaps where the idea of our show ties together with the album, because the identity of the record entirely did not stay fixed. It kept changing, it kept moving, it was consumed quite differently earlier, and now it's being consumed differently. So it got discovered, it was put out on the internet, and now people are trying to collect this and have a complete different context about it. Anyways, enough talk. We'll get to the next 3 tracks of the album. I'll introduce you the names right away. The first track will be called Baby's Tear Blues. The second one is Ode to an African Violet. And the third track, which was where the Legend of Zelda sound was also incorporated, is Concerto for Philodendron and Pothos. Let's get on with it.
KISSA In-Store Radio. Broadcasts for the curious.
Hello, check. All right, what's up, everybody? My name is Yash. I go by the stage name Yoshi, and today I'd like to begin by thanking Veg Non Veg, of course, for having us, but also Anandit from Antariksh Records for giving us this opportunity to, share all of this with you. Thanks, Nakul. That was definitely, really, really interesting. And what I want to talk to you about today is two disco albums. Both are Indian disco records. And what's most fascinating about both of these records is that they weren't really made in the center of the music industry. They essentially came from the fringes of the industry, and it came from people who were experimenting, people who were crossing cultures, and people who were just trying to build something completely different without necessarily realizing that they were building history. And whereas the first record, it captures disco arriving into India, the other record captures disco being reinvented by the South Asian diaspora after having migrated to the United Kingdom. Um, Neither of the records became huge commercial hits at that time, but eventually they did get a lot of traction and become extremely popular, especially in the cult record, cult vinyl community. And although they did not get their, fair share of commercial success in their time, it was incredibly interesting to see that they eventually got it in due course of time. So, yeah, I'm just going to start with the first record. It's called Disco Jazz. It's actually this one? Right. So that is the first album. It's called Disco Jazz, and I will get into how good it sounds and everything about it from a storytelling perspective, from a cultural perspective, from the perspective of sociology and anthropological perspective. But it is also one of the best looking records that I have with me. So I'm just going to take a moment to show it to you. It's incredibly exciting for me to play this record. So yeah. So that is the record of disco jazz. Uh, Silver in color, kind of synonymous with disco. Very different to see a record like this. Um, so yeah, before I play this record, I want to tell you a little bit about how disco kind of came to India, and it essentially came with this artist called Asha Puthli, who became really, really famous internationally. She had a take on disco, which was kind of a mixture of soul, opera, and of course disco as well. And one of the most interesting things about her was that she was a regular at Studio 54, and she was also photographed quite often by Andy Warhol, which was really interesting given that time, especially for an Indian artist. And she basically set the blueprint for what is now known as Indian disco. So whether it's the records that I'm going to be talking about today, or whether it's others who followed suit like Nazia Hassan or Bappi Lahiri, all of these artists basically made music which emerged from the shadows of the work that she had done. And the record that I just showed you, it's called Disco Jazz by Rupa Biswas. And one of the things that's so interesting about the record is the year that it was released in. It was released in 1982, and this was a huge turning point for India culturally. It was the year that Indira Gandhi had gone to the United States after almost 10 years and had gotten a lot of traction for her visit to the United States. It was also the year that Gandhi by Richard Attenborough was released and had won 8 Oscars. It was the year when Banu Athaiya became the first Indian to ever win an Oscar. Uh, it happened to be the year when color television first came to India, and it was also the year that the Asian Games were hosted in Delhi. So that cultural context, I think, is incredibly important because it was the first time, I think, in the history of India where Indians started to feel that they had finally arrived on the global stage. And I think that makes it incredibly more interesting to just listen to the album in the context of all of that information. So yeah, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about Rupa's backstory. And Rupa was born in Bengal into a middle class family, and slightly uncommon at that time. There was actually a lot of emphasis on art and culture in her family. She came from a middle class family, but there were, of course, societal constraints. Women were not necessarily expected to have jobs or, do much when it came to their occupation. Um, and I mean, to some extent, it does continue to be like that today. But yeah, she continued to push and she continued to sing because that's what she loved to do. Even for the men at that time, I think the common occupations were to become a lawyer or to become a doctor or to become an engineer. So, given all of this context at that time, I think it was so much more interesting to see her just push forward and experiment. And she just kept singing. And one of the small breakthroughs that she had initially in her career was to be live on All India Radio. And back in the day, this was even before television was mainstream. Being on All India Radio was essentially like you've made it in life. You'd kind of you'd basically achieved national fame in India. And yeah, the way the album was made was also really interesting. Uh, Rupa was basically on a holiday in Calgary, in Canada, with her family. And there were a bunch of Indians and Pakistanis, South Asians who'd gotten together and they were just hosting a musical night. And there were about 1,000 people in attendance. And, Rupa just decided that she's going to sing there. She sang her songs, she sang ghazals, she sang her geets. And there were two brothers in the audience, Ashish and Pranesh Khan, who became obsessed with her voice, and they pushed her to record. And within the span of a week in Calgary, while she was essentially just on a like a family holiday, um, in 1 week in the tiny studio, mostly made up of um, immigrants and students on the most minimal setup possible. They decided to record this album, and one of the most interesting parts of it is that it is essentially a DIY project. It's just a group of family members who get together as immigrants in a country that they barely know, and they record something, and yeah, the rest is history. So I'm going to play a little bit of this record and then talk a little bit more about it. And yeah, then we'll take it from there.
KISSA In-Store Radio. Broadcasts
for the curious.
So yeah, that was Disco Jazz and the famous song from that album, which is Aaj Shanibar. And what you're listening to is basically a combination of disco bass lines with electronic synths, but also classical, semi-classical Bengali vocals, which was something which was, I mean, for that time, it was extremely innovative. And just as a note, it is extremely different from Bollywood disco because, in some essence, it is so much more intimate. It is so much more strange. It is uh, so much softer than what Bollywood disco stood for. Uh, and yeah, during that time, this record almost completely failed commercially. And the reason for that is that Bollywood disco was taking India by storm. So what had happened was during the same time there was Nazia Hassan's Aap Jaisa Koi that was released, and compared to the commercial firepower that a record like that had, an independent artist like Rupa, who was trying to innovate with her with her sound and trying to do something different, just could not compete with big record labels or the commercial firepower that these big record labels had, or that Bollywood came with. And so somewhere around that time, this record completely disappeared. And Rupa also stopped, producing music or performing music. She just kind of left music as it is. Um, Times were so bad that uh, her record was so available so less that she literally had to go buy a cassette herself to listen to her own music. It wasn't that even like the label sent her the music that she was working on. And many years later, I think it was 2016, when strangely YouTube's algorithm pushed this record forward in ways that we don't even understand, and it ended up becoming a cult classic, uh, with collectors, DJs playing this everywhere from Croatia to the clubs of London, and the original copy of this record going for upwards of €1,000 just to own one copy of this. Um, so yeah, like I mean, there's a lot that happened during this time, and disco in India was, in some way, it was extremely rebellious. It meant freedom. It meant freedom in many ways. It meant sexual freedom. It meant spaces that were mixed gender spaces. It meant breaking conservative social rules, and it just kind of documented a generation that was trying or learning to move freely. So yeah, that was it, and I'm going to play one more track from this album before I call Nakul back, and we're going to take you through another album. This one's called East West Shuffle, quite literally the East meeting the West in terms of sound. So yeah, I hope you enjoy.
KISSA In-Store Radio. Broadcasts for the curious.
Hello. Yeah, so that was Rupa's Disco Jazz. And now Nakul and I are going to talk about another cult classic, another favorite of mine called Punjabi Disco. Um the context, of course, is totally different. So while uh, the previous album spoke a lot about disco coming to India, this is more about Indians taking their own version of disco to a country that is not theirs. It's a Punjabi lady that goes from India, first generation immigrant who goes to Punjab and creates a space for herself, but not just a space, a lot more. And a little bit of context about the time. Um post-colonial, post-colonial India, lots of people going back to former colonizers, former countries that colonized them in search of better jobs, but had very mundane lives, were essentially factory workers, working extremely hard, faced a lot of racism, lived very community-centered lives, or attempted to find solace through community when they were in these countries that were not their own. And one thing that was extremely different was that there weren't any dance floors for British Asians. Um, the only places that they would or they could traditionally dance at was weddings, maybe sing a little bit, for example, at the Gurdwara, participate in kirtans. But even then, the weddings were extremely different from how the weddings are today. There was a lot of segregation in terms of gender, so men would be sitting on a different side, the women would be sitting on a different side, and yeah, even communal dancing wasn't entirely normalized yet. So that itself becomes extremely important because uh, how this album and how this record impacted the dance floor is extremely crucial to how things changed in the years and the decades after. And about the artist Mohinder Kaur Bhamra, she was an exceptionally gifted singer. She usually sang devotional music. She sang in kirtan. She sang ghazals. She sang filmy songs, and she had a son called Kuljit who used to accompany her on the tabla. And he realized that after the movie Saturday Night Fever was released, and of course everybody watched it, it was a big hit, Indians also watched it, he noticed something different. He noticed that when he would perform after the release of this movie, people were kind of itching in their seats to dance. They wanted to move a leg. It was just like he could see them wanting to dance. And so he did something which was radically different. So traditionally, in the traditional Indian Baithak, you would kind of be sitting and singing on one side of the stage, and right in front of the stage would be seating. What he did was just move the seating backwards by like a few meters, so that just creating a space for people to dance in front, right in front of the stage. And that simple act alone was so radical in that time, because um, that was essentially the first time a dance floor existed for British Asians in Britain. This was long before there was anything like Bhangra. Bhangra wasn't global yet. There was no Asian underground music. There was no club culture for Asians in London or Manchester or any of these places. And yeah, that is essentially why this album matters so much, because it is a documentation of social transformation. And
Especially the sound also. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
considering this was back when it was, you know, the it sounds incredibly modern for when it was made, and also because perhaps Mohinder Kaur Bhamra's son Kuljit he got his hands on a couple of modern, at the time, modern equipments. And he started playing around with the Roland SH1000 synthesizer. He started playing around with the CR 8000 drum machine. And you could see the sound that is being picked by these equipments. You could see the distinction in the grooves, in the funky bass lines, and also in the drum machine rhythms that they eventually had in the album.
Right.
And it was quite traditional but quite futuristic altogether at the same time, which is quite insane.
Yeah, it was a lot of disco grooves, a lot of funk rhythms, a lot of syncopated bass, but the lyrics were entirely Punjabi. The delivery of the vocals was entirely Punjabi folk music, and just putting all of those things together, created an almost a genre in itself, which was Punjabi disco. I mean, it wasn't just a record; it was almost the creation of a genre, intimate space for people to feel safe, a dance for people in a country where no dance floors existed for them. And one of the more interesting aspects of this album was, like Rupa Biswas's disco jazz, that it was entirely a DIY project. So everybody who worked on the album knew everybody else. It was almost a family affair. Like Mohinder Kaur Bamra was doing the vocals, her son was playing the tabla, he was also producing.
He was producing. The younger one was also on the drum machine. You had the school friends that were playing the bass, and you also had another sibling who was handling and designing the artwork.
Cover art for the record.
Yeah.
So I mean, there was nothing corporate about this record at all. I mean, it was totally just DIY immigrant community innovation, and like it happened with Rupa Biswas's album, this album again was commercially a big failure.
Yeah, that was quite sad, to be honest, considering when it got ready, the label that the family was working with at the time, called EMI India, they completely mishandled the release. What happened was they released the album with the same name, with the same tracks, but the vocals were recorded by some other artist. And they eventually started selling it, distributing it globally to the masses. And what then Kuljit had to do, he didn't get disheartened at all. He eventually he went to his local community. He went to the Sikh community in South Hall, contacted grocery shops, contacted fruits and vegetable shops, to just
display the record.
Yeah, to just display.
Like right beside, like fruits would be sold, and like beside that you'd be like displaying this record. And I mean, it's quite an iconic, picture that gets painted when you imagine it like that. And essentially, it was just a record label stealing music from an artist, and doing what they had to do. But yeah, that was really quite a sad time.
Yeah, that trend, I don't know why it's not just going away. It really should.
Yeah, and audiences really did not understand this music at that time. It wasn't just music they were used to. Like, they were used to listening to folk Punjabi music or wedding Punjabi music, which was completely different. But Punjabi music with disco beats was just something that their ears hadn't heard before. They just had no idea how to relate to any of that. And funny enough, it's really interesting, because looking back today, it almost seems visionary what these guys did. Like, it was, looking back, like, I'm sure a lot of us in this room feel that it was such a visionary moment for them to decide to do that with those machines, with that sound, and fuse that with Punjabi folk vocals. But yeah, as the saying goes, a lot of groundbreaking music arrives before the audiences are ready for it.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. And eventually the audience did get ready for it, but decades after its release, just like disco jazz, how we talked about, followed a similar pattern. Collectors now in the 21st century, they started discovering this album. They really went gung-ho with this. A couple of them actually contacted Kuljit to source the original masters for this album so that they could get it reissued and remastered, and
They were dangerously close to being destroyed.
they were dangerously close to being destroyed.
It's just been
That's
such
right.
a long time since the masters were just lying in Kuljit's like trunk for God knows how many decades that I mean they were literally on the verge of being destroyed when Kuljit finally decided that yeah, we're going to reissue this album and remaster it and re-release it back into the world. So yeah, I mean, in conclusion, to connect both of these records, I mean, um, they were both made by people who were outside the music mainstream. They both the records came from the fringes of the community, and they both fused South Asian music with disco. They both failed commercially at first, but eventually became cult classics. And both of them were rediscovered through DJs and collectors. But yeah, they were also both just creating a space for themselves. One was creating a space for India in some sense, India entering uh, the times or the realm of modernity, while the other was creating a space for South Asians in a country that wasn't theirs. So yeah, I mean, it was in essence, it was a case of identity, and just something that I wanted to say in conclusion, that for both of these records, the dance floor eventually became more than entertainment. It became rebellion, it became liberation, it became migration, and it became memory. So with that, we're going to play two tracks from this album.
Yes, these are the two remixes of this one track called Disco Which Are. One of them is by Peaking Lights, and the other one is by
Balti.
Balti.
And
Peaking Lights, my favorite, and
Balti, my
Balti
favorite.
is his.
And disco, which are basically translating into come to the disco, don't be distant. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, before we get to actually playing the last record, we have quite a bit of people gathered here with us, and thank you all so much for being a part of this. We are really grateful for the fact that you could spend some time, share this moment with us, and hopefully we tried our level best to curate this as to the best of our ability. But yeah, nonetheless, a big round of applause to all of you as well. And yeah, let's get on with the last album. This is Nakul and Yoshi signing out. Peace. And for our live listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Hi, Papa. And a big thanks to Antariksh Records for letting us curate something so thoughtful. And also a big shout out to Veg Non-Veg as well. Thank you. Before you all are leaving, wish you a very happy anniversary, Nana ji and Nani ji. I will see you guys once this is done.
Thank you all for tuning in. It was an absolute pleasure. This is Nakul and Yoshi signing off with our last track, Disco Which A Balti Remix. Thank you.